It's Monster Monday. So that means, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to review me another monster movie. Shout outs to all of you guys that sat back and watched my Rodan review. I enjoyed it. I'm so grateful that you guys checked it out. Now today we are looking at a brand new monster movie. Bam. Anyway, so like he said, bam, we're looking at the 1989 classic, Godzilla versus Biollante. Now, one thing that stood out to me in this movie is the soundtrack. I highly enjoyed the soundtrack to this film, and honestly, it was so much enjoyable. Like, the soundtrack to the movie goes perfectly well with it, except for the X2 sound, the X2 track. That freaking superhero, like it reminds me of freaking the flute from Power Rangers. But anyway, that X2 track kills me. Like, it throws me off so much. I don't like that song. Like, it's just too superhero-y. Like, it just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit, like, at all. So other than that, the soundtrack is amazing. So another thing, let's just go into a brief synopsis of the film. So the movie is supposed to take place right after Godzilla 85, which is Godzilla Returns. And there's a group of scientists that have collected the G cells, a sample of Godzilla's flesh. They peeled it off like something in the town, and they've been harvesting it for cells so that they can create a bacteria and find ways to either, I think, grow plants so that they won't require oil anymore. And then also they want to create this bacteria that they can use in order to fight Godzilla. There ends up being this war between two factions, two groups of people that want the cells, and it ends up basically leading up to Godzilla being released. Now, there's also the scientist that's been involved. He's lost his daughter in this movie, and they want him to be involved in the project of harvesting or using the G cells in order to create this bacteria. But, you know, he doesn't want to do it because he's kind of hesitant because he lost a daughter because of these cells. He's like, you know, these cells have done so much damage to me already. Why would I want to be involved with that again, right? Fast forward, we have, eventually he gets involved, and one of his daughter's cells, he ends up injecting it into some roses. And eventually those roses are injected with the G cells. These G cells thus are creating a super being that we learn and love called Biollante. Now, Biollante, I'm gonna keep it a buck to all my people out there, especially kaiju fans. Biollante is one of my favorite kaijus, like hands down. Biollante is one of the most sickest designs that I've ever seen in any of the Godzilla films, like hands down. And honestly, I have a theory that would be dope in order to bring Biollante to the Monsterverse, but I will talk about that at the end of my review. Now, with that being said, Biollante goes to his first phase, which is just a huge rose with vines, with, I guess, like a huge rose with vines. And Godzilla easily defeats this version of Biollante, hands down, without no hesitation. Oh, by the way, Godzilla is freed from the mountain that he's been imprisoned in by by the other warring faction that wants the G cells. They threatened to release him if they didn't turn over the G cells. They didn't do it, so therefore they blew the top off, and they freed Godzilla to wreak havoc onto the city. Now, with that being said, Godzilla ends up defeating Biollante. You think it's over, and then they just rely on the X2 to try to put down Godzilla again. Until the return of the homie, Biollante. Biollante does return at the end of the movie with his final form on some Frieza shit. Now, Biollante, when he returns in this form, he is freaking huge. He has all these little vines with mouths at the end. He has rows of teeth. He's just this huge beast, right? Towering over Godzilla. and Biollante has a, I guess, like this sort of acid. It spews acid from its mouth, like this pollinated acid that it spews all over Godzilla. Now, eventually, Godzilla does defeat Biollante yet again, and he retreats into the water, I guess, to wash off this acidic pollen from his body. This film, honestly, eventually ties into what we see in Space Godzilla, which is also another one of my favorite kaiju films from at least this era. Now, I'm gonna keep it a bug. Biolante's design is freaking amazing. I would love to see more Biolante in the films. This film does a good job. Oof. This film does a very good job at storytelling. A lot of the Godzilla movies lack good storytelling. I remember when I was a kid, a lot of the Godzilla movies I would fast forward to the fights because the stories just sucked. And back then I had VHS, so I had to wait a real long time. I didn't get the DVD skip feature. Um, yeah. So I would fast forward it, but Godzilla versus Biollante was one of those films where I didn't have to fast forward the film, that I could actually watch it all the way through and enjoy it because it has a damn good story. You have the plight of a father who lost a loved one and who's trying to cling on to them and give them this eternal life. You have a movie with an epic soundtrack, except for the X2 track. You have a awesome monster design in Biollante, especially its final form. You have, to me, one of the best looking forms of Godzilla. In my opinion, the look of this Godzilla is amazing. He's like top 5 Godzilla facial designs or body designs. In my opinion, that's just me. You have a interesting subplot with a terrorist organization, like in most of the Godzilla movies. But and then the whole subplot of the G cells and this movie tying into 85, like this movie does a really good job at continuing the continuity and telling a damn good story and then giving you a dope ass monster fight at the end, you know? So honestly, dude, Godzilla versus Biollante is one of my favorite damn films. This mug gets a freaking 5 stars in my book because that's my movie. I love this movie. I love the character of Biollante. Um, I was looking at the Biollante figure that they have on this one website, and it's like $1,000, and I'm like, nah, I can't spend a stack. I can't spend a stack on like a model figure. I would love to, but I just can't. I can't. I really can't. But you know, there's some kaiju fans out there, you know, that want to send your boy a Godzilla figurine, a Biollante figurine. I would love it. But with that being said, dude, Godzilla versus Biollante is one of my favorite movies. It's all around one of the dopest Godzilla movies. It's one of the most grounded Godzilla movies out there. If you're gonna start with the Godzilla movie and you're not really into a lot of them, I would probably recommend this one. I mean, you know, I could possibly recommend some other ones, but this one to me does a really good job at telling a decent story, has a really good soundtrack, has characters that are likable, so on and so forth. With that being said, I have a theory that probably isn't going to come into fruition, but I would love it to. In regards to the legendary film series with Godzilla, we all know that at the end of King of the Monsters, we had King Ghidorah head being bought by that eco-terrorist guy. And a lot of people are saying that this is leading up to Mecha King Ghidorah, which might be the case. That might be a very interesting perspective. It might be a very interesting take. If he does regenerate and then maybe they put some sort of mechanical features on the rest of his body, I can definitely see that. We can also, especially because they've been saying that Mechagodzilla is going to be in Kong versus Godzilla, I can most definitely see that being plausible. Maybe Mechagodzilla being destroyed and they refurbished those parts in order to create Mecha King Ghidorah. I can completely see that happening. But like they did in the Millennium series. But no, wait, that wasn't Millennium. They didn't use Mecha. Did they? I don't remember. I think I could have sworn they said they scavenged Mechagodzilla parts for that. I could be wrong though. But in one of the movies, I think it was that movie. But anyway, there is a comic book that introduces a very interesting idea. And in that idea, Biollante merges with the cells from King Ghidorah. Now, listen, if you have the cells of King Ghidorah and you have a scientist mix them with a flower, thus creating Biollante. Now, in the comic book, the cell merger happens in a completely different way, but yeah, the cell merger happens in a completely different way, but it's still what it creates is an interesting character. It is a hybrid between Ghidorah and Biollante, and you can honestly look it up on YouTube or Google it. Google it. Just look up Ghidorah Biollante hybrid, and you're going to see this Biollante looking beast that looks like Ghidorah. It's really really cool though. I think the idea is really solid. I think that would be a dope way to introduce Biollante. Also giving him a new twist, giving him kind of like some new flavor. I think that would be very interesting to do. So I think either the Mecha King Ghidorah route will be a good way to go, or even the Biollante route will be the good way to go. Either or, it's good with me. Even if you just extract Ghidorah's cells and just go about the Biollante route that way, and then also keep Mecha King Ghidorah. Whatever you want to do with it, it's cool. But I still think the idea of Biollante Ghidorah is very cool. It's very original. It's very unique. And then also we get to see the freaking Titan himself, Biollante, pull up. So with that being said, this is Monster Monday. My film recommendation is Godzilla versus Biollante. I will definitely recommend that to anybody, kaiju fan or not. It is a must see, and that's it. So this is Davey from the 80s, and you are now exiting the Cinema Chop Shop. If you have not done so by now, hit the subscribe button on the bottom, in the bottom somewhere right there, and then also in the description there's a link to my Patreon account. You can recommend me movies to watch. I will review them, and you already know I will. So with that being said, adios.